My parents always called me the useless one, laughing at my dreams while they paid for my sister's fancy college degree. Growing up, I was the shadow in our family, the kid who could never measure up to Sarah, the golden child. They'd parade her achievements: straight A's, debate team captain, future lawyer, while I got smears from my late night coding sessions and weird tech obsession. At 16, I overheard them at a family dinner, mocking me to our relatives, saying I'd never amount to anything because I didn't have a degree like Sarah. That night, I swore I'd prove them wrong, but I kept my plans quiet, working in the dark, building something they'd never see coming. By the time Sarah's college graduation rolled around, I was 22, still living in their basement, enduring their daily jabs about my wasted potential. They didn't know I'd been coding an app for 3 years, one that had just caught the eye of a major tech firm. Asterisk, hey, if you're loving this twist-filled story, hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more epic tales of revenge and triumph. At Sarah's graduation, the whole family gathered in the university's grand auditorium, clapping as she strutted across the stage in her cap and gown. My parents beamed, bragging to everyone about her full-ride scholarship they'd funded. Then came the moment they turned to me in front of the crowd, smirking, and Dad said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Maybe one day you'll figure out something useful, unlike your sister's big day." The room went quiet, eyes on me, waiting for me to shrink like always. But I stood up, heart pounding, and pulled out my phone. With a grin, I opened an email from the tech firm and held it up. "Funny you mentioned that, Dad," I said, my voice steady. "I just sold my app for $5 million. They're flying me out tomorrow to sign the deal." The color drained from their faces, jaws dropping as whispers spread through the crowd. Sarah's smile froze, and Mom's champagne glass trembled. In her hand, they didn't know I'd been working with a team of coders across the globe, turning my useless hobby into a fortune. But that was just the start. There was something else they didn't know, something bigger I hadn't revealed yet, and it was about to change everything. My parents' pale faces at Sarah's graduation were just the beginning, their shock hanging in the air like a storm about to break. As the crowd buzzed with whispers about my $5 million app deal, I could see Dad's smirk fade into a tight-lipped scowl, and Mom's eyes darted between me and Sarah, like she was recalculating her whole life. I didn't stick around to bask in their stunned silence. Instead, I walked out of the auditorium, leaving them to stew in their own words. Back home, I kept my head down, knowing they'd try to claw their way back into my life now that I wasn't their useless kid anymore. Sure enough, the next morning, Dad knocked on my basement door, his voice softer than I'd ever heard, asking to talk about my success. I played along, nodding as he rambled about how they'd always believed in me. But I knew better. Their sudden kindness was just a grab for my money. What they didn't know was I'd been planning for this moment, quietly setting up a trust fund that locked them out completely. Over the next week, Sarah started texting me, all sweet and sisterly, inviting me to her celebratory dinner at a fancy restaurant downtown. I agreed, sensing a trap, but curious to see how far they'd go. At the dinner, the whole family was there, smiling like we were one big happy unit, but their eyes were greedy, waiting for me to spill details about my deal. Then Sarah leaned in, her voice dripping with fake concern, and said, "You're not going to waste all that money, right? We could help you manage it." That's when I dropped the second bomb. I leaned back, sipped my water, and said, "Oh, don't worry. I already invested most of it into a company I now own. You're sitting in my restaurant." The table went dead silent, their forks frozen midair, as the waiter handed me the deed to the place, my name in bold. But there was something else coming, a secret I'd buried even deeper, and it was about to make their jaws hit the floor. Asterisk. The restaurant went quiet as my parents and Sarah stared at the deed in my hand, their fake smiles crumbling like cheap plaster. I let the moment sink in, watching Mom's fingers tighten around her napkin and Dad's face turn red, like he was choking on his own pride. Sarah tried to laugh it off, tossing her hair and saying, "Nice joke, but you owning this place? Come on." I just smirked and nodded to the manager, who walked over with a bottle of their most expensive wine, compliments of the owner. Their eyes widened as he poured me a glass, calling me Mr. CEO in front of the whole staff. What they didn't know was that this restaurant was just the tip of my empire. I'd been buying up failing businesses across the city, turning them into cash machines, all while they thought I was tinkering in their basement. Back when they were busy funding Sarah's law degree, I was teaching myself how to flip companies, using every late night hour to study markets and make deals. No, I owned half the block, including the law firm Sarah was begging for a job at. That night, as they squirmed, I played dumb, letting them think they could still manipulate me. Dad started talking about family investments, hinting they deserved a cut for raising me. I nodded along, then casually mentioned a gala I was hosting next week for my company's investors, a black tie event at the city's swankiest hotel. "You should come," I said, watching their eyes light up with greed. They had no idea I'd invited someone else to the gala, someone from their past who knew their dirtiest secret, a secret they thought was buried forever. As we left the restaurant, Sarah pulled me aside, her voice low and sharp. "What's your game?" she hissed. I just smiled and said, "You'll see at the gala." The trap was set, and the real twist was coming, one that would make them regret ever calling me useless. Asterisk, the gala night arrived, and the hotel ballroom sparkled with chandeliers filled with the city's elite sipping champagne and eyeing my every move. My parents and Sarah showed up, dressed to impress, thinking they could charm their way into my newfound wealth. They mingled with the investors, dropping my name like they'd been part of my success all along, while I stood back, watching their act. I'd planned this night down to the last detail, and they were walking right into it. As the evening peaked, I took the stage to announce my company's latest move, a $50 million expansion into international markets. The crowd erupted in applause, but my parents' faces tightened when I introduced my special guest. Out walked Mr. Harper, their old business partner, a man they'd swindled years ago to fund Sarah's college. His presence sent a chill through them. Mom's glass slipped, shattering on the floor. Harper smiled at me, then turned to the crowd and said, "This young man's success is no accident. He's been planning it since the day his family betrayed him." Gasps rippled through the room as he hinted at their scam, a secret they thought was dead and buried. I leaned into the mic, my voice calm but sharp, and said, "Some people thought I'd stay in their shadow forever, but I built this empire to prove them wrong." Sarah's face went ghostly white, and Dad looked like he wanted to bolt. They didn't know Harper had proof of their fraud, documents I'd helped him uncover, and he was ready to expose them to the world. But there was one final piece of the puzzle, a move I hadn't played yet, and it was about to turn their world upside down. Asterisk, the ballroom was a frozen tableau. Every eye locked on my parents and Sarah as Mr. Harper's words hung heavy in the air. Their faces were a mix of panic and rage, but they couldn't run not with the city's biggest names watching. I stepped off the stage, letting the tension build, and walked straight to them, my smile cold but polite. "You thought you could bury your lies and keep me down forever?" I said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Mom tried to laugh it off, stammering about misunderstandings, while Dad hissed at me to stop, but I wasn't done. I pulled out a small USB drive and held it up, the crowd leaning in, curious. "This," I said, "has every email, every Bank record, every shady deal you made to cheat Mr. Harper and fund Sarah's perfect little life. The room buzzed as Sarah lunged forward, trying to grab it, but security stepped in, guiding her back. I turned to the audience and announced my final move. I was handing the evidence to Harper's legal team, who'd been waiting for years to take my family down. Their fraud would be front-page news by morning. But the real twist came when I revealed my last secret. I'd used my fortune to buy the very law firm Sarah had just signed with, making me her boss. Her jaw dropped, and Dad's face turned purple as the crowd erupted in whispers. "You mocked me for years," I said, staring them down, "but now you'll answer to me." As security escorted them out, their humiliated faces burned into my memory. I felt a rush of triumph. The audience clapped, inspired by the underdog who'd flipped the script. But there was one last call I made as they left, a call to someone who'd been watching from the shadows, ready to deliver the final blow to their crumbling world.